Welcome back to the Autry Benton Show. Today's guest is a father, a husband. He spent a good bit of time in the state capitol in the House of Representatives and is currently a state senator. He served our country and continues to serve our country, and he wants to be your next Attorney General. Today's guest is Senator Stephen Goldfinch. Senator, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Autry. Appreciate it.
Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. How's things going, buddy? You're busy on the trail.
Yeah, we were actually trying to do the math earlier. I think we're almost at all 46 counties here in South Carolina visited. I think we're missing maybe 2. And so it's been great. The response has been great. The fundraising's been great. Very blessed.
Amen.
Yeah, very blessed.
Beautiful state, isn't it?
It
Great
is.
people.
And the people really are what make it special. I've really enjoyed getting around and meeting people that I would have normally otherwise never seen or never, there's lots of little towns that you sort of see through the, as you're driving through and passing on the interstate, but I would have never stopped it,
Yeah.
You name the town, Olanta or somewhere,
right?
Some weird little town that you see from the interstate, and you stop, and it's a delightful little town with great shops and great little coffee shops, and I've really enjoyed getting to spend some time in those little places I wouldn't have normally gone. Man,
that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, it's probably something, unless you were running for a statewide office, you might have never done.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have ever gotten to get around and meet. We were up in Cheraw a few weeks ago, or maybe months ago. We were up in Cheraw a few months ago and stopped by this great little mercantile, and had a friend bring over 40 or 50 people and got to meet the police force. And,
oh, wow.
And just, I was talking to the campaign team. I said, I would have never gotten to do this otherwise. It's been a real blessing for us.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I want to kind of start back at the beginning so the people can kind of get to know you. So we both got deep roots in Conway. So bring us back to the beginning. Where did Stephen grow up?
In Conway, between Conway and Murrells Inlet. My folks had a house in Murrells Inlet and a house in Conway. My mom was a teacher in the Conway school system, so I went to the Conway. I was in the Conway school system. Went to Conway primary, elementary, middle, and high school.
Wow.
Went to the Citadel. Graduated from the Citadel in 2004. The dream was to go into the Navy. I was a commercial spearfisherman before I went to school. And the dream was to go in the Navy, be a commercial diver, be a Navy diver, and I ended up having a stroke underwater, an air embolism.
Oh, no.
And ended up with 10% brain damage. I like to tell my kids I've got Dane Bramage. But ended up with 10% brain damage, had to go in and out of the chamber, almost a year in and out of the chamber between Duke and MUSC and McLeod. And eventually, the Navy said no more. So was not able to take a commission, and ultimately the Army took me because the Army will take anybody, and even with brain damage. And so anyway, went into the JAG Corps eventually, served in a combat zone, North Africa, became the Chief of Military Justice, got to try lots and lots of cases, convict a lot of bad guys, and ultimately I went on to advise a 3-star and a 4-star command on national security law and operational law, combat operational law, and had some great experiences in the military. But in 2004, I started a biotech company.
Okay. Can I pause you there first?
Yeah,
I'm going to back up there, back there a little bit. So coming out of high school, did you know you wanted to go to the Citadel?
I did. I don't know. I look back on it sometimes and I think, what would have happened had I gone and done something different? But I had a group of friends in high school that were all going to USC. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I probably would not survive going to USC because I had 7 or 8 guy friends that were going there, and wanted to go in the military and wanted to sort of get my life on a different path. And so I went to the Citadel to try to avoid everybody that I knew.
But you knew that you wanted to go in the military already?
I did, yeah. I did.
How far did that go back?
Oh, forever. Yeah,
wow.
Forever. My granddad was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he didn't talk about the details of that, but when I turned, it was either 10 or 12 years old, he took me to Germany and took me to his foxhole in the Ardennes forest and walked me straight to it, walked me straight to his foxhole. He, it's a side story, and I don't know how much time you got.
I love side stories.
Well, him and his battle buddy were probing for landmines ahead of the 5th Panzer as they were coming into the Ardennes forest, and his battle buddy stepped on a landmine and killed his battle buddy, and it blew my granddad into a snowbank in a ditch. And one of the German colonels that was riding on the 1st tank in 5th Panzer was coming through and saw his boot sticking out of a snowbank.
Oh, wow.
Pulled him out, put him on the tank with him, took him to his car, and drove him to his house, which was across enemy lines. Drove him to his house. Him and his wife nursed him back to health. 7 weeks they kept him in his house. He had real bad, what they called shell shock back then, but real bad frostbite, eating up on his feet really terribly. And anyway, they nursed him back to health. In 7 weeks they kept him, and they released him over to the Allied forces after that. Him and this German colonel became great friends.
Wow.
And became, they were friends for 50 plus years after that. And my dad went to live with them in Germany when he was a kid, and his son came to live with us when he was a kid here in America.
And this is your dad's side of the family?
It's my dad's side of the family.
Wow.
And we've developed a relationship and a friendship that has is still going to this day. And actually, the German colonel's son has a house in Merle's Inlet in my neighborhood now.
Is that right?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So military service is deep in your family and just left an imprint on you. And thank you for your grandfather's service. I mean,
I mean, he's obviously gone now. He's been dead for 20-something years. But the stories of World War II had a deep impact on me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you as well. But I mean, just the sacrifice. I mean, that was a real war. That was a real war.
Greatest generation?
Absolutely the greatest generation. And to hear the stories, from Normandy to the Battle of the Bulge to the Pacific Theater, just amazing to me. I've always been fascinated by it. I love the history. I love watching the documentaries and reading the books. And to have a personal touch, to have a grandfather that was deeply involved in that. I always just said to myself, I want to do that. I want to in some way, and in no way did I do that, right? I mean, that service goes above and beyond, but I wanted to contribute. America's the greatest place on earth.
Amen, brother.
It is the greatest place on earth. If you've ever been anywhere else, you know that. Like I told you, I served in a combat zone in North Africa, and it is hell on earth. I mean, it really is. And people that have been to Afghanistan and Iraq would tell you the same thing. I mean, it is hell on earth. Everybody wants to kill you. The bugs, the animals, and the people all want to kill you. Even the rocks, the tops of the rocks are blackened from the sun. And, when I came back home, I was wounded in North Africa, and I was shipped back home, medevac back home. Had to spend a month in Germany getting stitched up. But when I got back home, I kissed the ground as soon as I landed in America.
Sure appreciate it, right?
I mean, it's the greatest place on earth.
Yeah, and a lot of people that talk hard about our land need to go spend some time in a place like that, I'd say.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I think every kid, if I was dictator for the day, or king for the day, I'd say every kid needs to spend a little time in the service.
Yeah.
Every kid needs to understand how great America is and that it's worth fighting for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I appreciate you sharing that. So you knew that you needed to get on task. That's why you went to the Citadel.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy your time there? Was it good?
I don't know if anybody enjoys their time
You survived
there. I survived, developed some deep, lasting relationships there, and it did. I mean, it'll turn you from a boy to a man quick if you embrace it. And I did. And when I became a senior, I graduated a little early, but when I became a senior, I told a professor, I was in an upper level business class there. And I was a biology major, a biochemistry major, and I told the professor, I said, I'm in this class because my Navy career's over. I wasn't going to the Navy, and the Army hadn't accepted me yet by then. And I said, I want to do something different. I don't want to go to medical school, and I don't want to go to law school. And what am I going to do?
Right.
And so after the end of the semester of this upper level business class, this professor, he was a Fortune 500 CFO. He had retired to Kiowa, and he was an adjunct professor. And he said, I'm rich and I'm bored. Bring me a business plan. Let's do something together. And so I started a biotech company in Charleston with this guy.
Coming out of college?
Coming right out of college.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 22 years old, 23 years old. We started a biotech company, and we did umbilical cord blood stem cell banking.
Okay.
So when a baby's born, you cut the umbilical cord off, and what we do is we extract the blood, and you extract those umbilical cord blood stem cells. They're not the controversial embryonic stem cells. They would just come right out of the umbilical cord, and we'd freeze those cryogenically freeze those and bank them for future use for babies, God forbid they were to come down with lymphoma or leukemia or something terrible. And Autry, that company did gangbusters. I mean, it went very, very well.
Right.
But what I noticed from like day one, from the hiring of employees to the building of buildings to the purchasing of equipment to the growth initiatives all the way to the sale of that company, what I noticed was that the government was in my way. Like they weren't there as a stepping stone. They weren't there to help grow wealth. They were there as a stumbling block. They were there to destroy wealth. The regulatory environment that we were living under just to try to live the American dream, to try to be an entrepreneur, it was crippling to me and my company. And so, you know, I was political in the sense that I was a Republican all the way back. I mean, my family's always been Republican. I've always been Republican. I've always identified as Republican. But I've never seen those practices, the implications of those practices put into place until I had my own business, until I saw what could happen when the federal government really put the heavy hand of government on a business. And so in 2006, we sold that first company. And I started a second biotech company. This time, instead of banking the umbilical cord blood stem cells, what we did was we pushed those umbilical cord blood stem cells down cell lines, and we created neurons and oligosites and chondrocytes and all the stuff that, you know, that's in your body. And we sold those stem cell lines, umbilical cord blood stem cell lines, to researchers all over the world. And that company went gangbusters.
Okay.
But for the federal government being in my business every single step of the way, the regulatory environment just crippling. So in 2007, a year after I'd started this second company, I needed a lawyer in my pocket 24/7. And I look back on that today and I think, how ridiculous. I'm just trying to live the American dream here.
It takes the fun out of it.
It totally took the fun out of it. And so I decided I was going to go to law school.
Okay. So you're how many years removed from the Citadel then?
4 years or so, 3 or 4 years removed from the Citadel.
All right, bring me up on your personal life. Are you married now?
I got married in 2006.
Okay, so
Yeah.
So okay, you're married. Okay, good deal.
Married in 2006.
Okay.
Went to law school in 2006, 2007.
Okay,
Because I needed a lawyer 24/7.
I got you.
And I didn't go to law school because I wanted to go out in the community and serve the community and be a lawyer, and that's a great thing to do. I appreciate that, but that was
That's
not
just one of your story.
Wasn't my story. Wasn't what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was run businesses.
Okay.
And I needed a law degree. I thought I did. Needed a law degree. Now looking back on it, I think it's kind of ridiculous to represent yourself, but back then I said, I need a lawyer all the time. I want to be my own lawyer so I don't have to pay these dumb lawyers all the time.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Now you've done a lot, so I'm gonna kind of make sure I'm following things
Sure.
here. So you're 2 years removed from college, or 4 years removed from
4
college?
years removed, yeah.
Okay. Are you in military now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I'll get there.
Okay. I'm with you.
Yep, I'll get there.
You've done a lot early, man.
Yeah, I did, man. I've had a real blessed life, and just some good breaks, and following the Lord's will. And
Yeah, and I interrupted you, and I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're
Can
good.
I ask you one more?
Sure.
Because anybody who knows Goldfinch in Horry County know you had an established, y'all were well established in funeral home. Was that ever on your radar?
No. So I worked in the and I'll tell you if we have time, I'll tell you a funny story about that. But I worked in the family business as a kid and as a teenager. I dug graves and I weeded it out of this. Our family owns the cemeteries as well, Hillcrest across from Coastal. And so I dug graves and I weeded it and I worked funerals and I picked up bodies and all the gross stuff that nobody else wants to do, think about doing. And by the time I was 16 or 17 years old, I just knew that was not the path for me.
I got you.
It's not that there's anything wrong with it. I didn't feel like there was anything wrong with it. I'm just one of these hard-headed people that wants to pave my own path.
I got you.
Like I just had no desire to go and do that. And so just wanted to go do something different. I wanted to go to the military.
Good. And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
it's good.
You're good. So went to law school, graduated from law school. And
how was that? Was it tough again, or I can tell you're smart if you're in.
Yeah, I mean, look, the bar's a pain. I studied for I think 3 months straight every single day. My wife asked me one day, "Do you want to take a break and go to the movies?" And I looked at her and I said, "If I go to the movies today and I fail, I'll be able to look back and say that's the day that ruined it for me."
Yeah.
And so I studied for 3 months straight, every single day. I treated it like a job. 12 hours a day I was studying constantly.
Did you think my daughter's in law school now? I'm asking a question. Do you think it helped you to have some life experience to do that?
I do, yeah. So even just a few years, I was only 3 or 4 years older than my peers in law school, but you'd hear law school was a liberal education. Getting a law degree is a liberal education, and I'm a conservative person. The reason I went to law school is because I hated the liberal bureaucracy, the agency state. It's just irritating to me. And so, when I'd hear some of this left-leaning sort of mentality come out of the professors, I could say that's not reality, right? Like I've lived this life. I've lived something other than academia, right? And I'm telling you, that's not how this works in practice. And so I found it to be very helpful. But I sold that. So in the middle of law school, we got an offer from one of the labs that we were selling umbilical cord blood cells to. We got an offer from them, and so it was a good offer, and so we sold the company. And so in 2009, when I was getting ready to graduate from law school, didn't have a company, needed to decide what to do, and so I decided I was going to open a law practice, which was not what I intended on doing at all. But it's just where life had led me. Didn't have a job at that time, and sort of semi-retired, had sold 2 companies, didn't have a third one in the works, and so let's open a law practice and see where that goes. So the idea was to move back from Charleston back home, because I had I've got a family here, I've got a family name, and if you're going to open a law practice, you got to have some kind of, you got to have something. You don't want to just open a law practice in Charleston with the other 1,000 lawyers that are down there. So we moved back home, moved to Murrells Inlet, and opened a law practice there. And my very first case, Autry, was a guy, you might know who he is, I'm not going to call his name,
right.
But he came to me and he said, he was a real estate agent, and he built a couple houses on the side. And he came to me and he said, Stephen, I'm building this house in Murrells Inlet, I'm building a dock. And he said, DHEC came and did an inspection of that dock, and they found a 50-year-old unpermitted bulkhead buried 3 feet in the mud. It didn't have any effect on anything. It was buried in the mud 3 feet deep. And he said, for 9 months, I've been working to try to get DHEC to remove that cease and desist order from me, that stop work order, and I can't get them to budge. And Autry, I was just so mad. I was looking at this guy, and I was thinking, this is just a small business guy trying to make a living, trying to live the American dream, trying to build a couple houses on the side. And here's DHEC, government, the agency state, ruining his life. Like, this guy is literally having to take out another mortgage to float this place while he waits on DHEC to do their thing so he can sell it. And so I was sitting at my computer and I was typing a complaint and I was suing the state, and I was just mad, just fuming. This guy, the same thing, he's going through the same thing I was going through. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. If I was only in politics, maybe I could just pick up the phone and call the director of DHEC and say, get down here. Get down here and look at this. Use a little common sense. And 2 weeks later, it's magic. Like, it was a God thing. It wasn't magic, but it was like magic. 2 weeks later, the House member from my area decided to retire, and I ran and I won. Oh, wow. And then 4 years later, the senator from my area decided to retire, and I ran and I won. Wow. And I'm still fighting the agency state today. It still goes on, eh? Yeah. Still goes on. Wow. Yeah. So your first introduction into politics campaign, did you enjoy that? No, I really didn't. I told you earlier, there's not a lot that I enjoy about politics. I find it to be a means to an end. And the end is helping people. Like, constituent services to me is the most important thing you can do as a politician or a public servant. You have all the stuff, that you have all the floor work and the committee work and all the stuff, but like, getting elected is a means to an end of helping your community, like serving your community in some way that's impactful, that helps the small businessman or small business lady live the American dream and pay for her family, and put food on the table. I mean, that's all the other stuff, the partisanship, which I get involved in that too, but all the other stuff sort of falls to the side when you look at the core function of what you're supposed to be doing as a public servant, which is answering the phone when somebody calls and says, how can I help? Yeah.
You like doing the work.
I like effectuating change.
Yeah.
I like it when I can call the director of DHEC and say, get down here and look at this. You know, and they do. I get it's such an amazing power to me to be able to pick up a phone and call an agency head and say, get down here and make a difference, change this, fix this problem. And they do. And I just find that to be, that's what energizes, like that is what gets me up in the morning and gets me going. That's what I think about every time I go to bed at night. I don't think about abortion debates or, you know, tax policy or any of the other, you know, I don't think about that stuff.
Yeah.
I think about picking up the phone and helping Autry Bentons of the world when they call me and say, government's ruining me here. That's what excites me.
I got you. Okay, so you're elected to the House of Representatives. Are you in the military now?
No.
No. Okay.
Almost.
Wow. I got you.
Almost. So you want me to get to the military part?
Get to the military.
All right. So in 2016, I was elected to the Senate, and I was actually having dinner with the former Adjutant General, General Livingston.
Okay.
And
Medal of Honor?
no, the other one,
Okay.
the Medal of Honor, General Livingston. That's James Livingston. He actually endorsed us last week, and that's on my website now if you'd like to see it. Jim Livingston was the Adjutant General from 2008 or so, 2010 or so, until 2016 or so, 2018. My years may be off from there. I'm a little fuzzy. But anyway, he was the Adjutant General, the tag for South Carolina. I was having dinner with him, and we were talking about my story, kind of like this, getting to know each other. And I told him, you know, I had this dream of going and being a Navy diver and traveling the world. And he said, well, if you want to get back in and serve your time, I'll be happy to sign all your waivers. And I said, sir, I've had a stroke. I've got 10% brain damage. And he said, I'm the Adjutant General. I can do whatever I want to do. And so he did. To his credit, he signed all of my waivers, and they pushed it up to the National Guard Bureau and signed all of my waivers. And I went to basic training at 37 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Columbia?
No, I went to Fort Benning.
Fort Benning. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Did you enjoy it?
No.
It's kind of like the Citadel all over again.
It's kind of like, yeah, I mean, there are some things that I did enjoy. I got my roommate was a fantastic guy. He was a Cuban guy, a Cuban refugee who had gotten his citizenship, obviously, and had served in Iraq as a sniper. And he and I have just developed a fantastic friendship over the years. And he's been deployed multiple times. I've been deployed. And so, you know, we cross paths, we see each other. And so I've developed friendships with people in the Army or in the Guard that I would have never otherwise had. But you can't ever say that basic training was fun. Good
deal. So you graduated from there. You get
Yeah. So I graduated from Fort Benning, and then I was lucky enough to pick up a JAG slot. So the JAG slot takes you to Charlottesville, the UVA, which is a pretty daggum good slot to have, by the way. If you ever get a chance to go to JAG school, go, anybody that may be listening to this. But the JAG school is on the UVA campus in Charlottesville. And some of the best training that you'll ever have. Awesome watching. You get to watch these big screens of operations as they are live, and you get to sort of make calls and Law of War and LOAC, and it's an awesome experience to have gone through that. But I went through that, and then in 2023, 5 years later or so, 2023, I deployed to North Africa.
Okay, so tell me about that. What the deployment was, what exactly you were doing there. So
I was slotted as Chief of Military Justice for all of Africa. Big job, and let me back up a little bit. We did our workup at Fort Hood, or whatever they call Fort Hood now. I think it's back to Fort Hood. Then I went to Addis Ababa after that, Ethiopia. Spent a few days there. Then I went to Djibouti and spent a month and a half in Djibouti. Got to travel around a little bit in North Africa, but when I was in Djibouti, we were only 12 miles from Yemen, 11 and a half, a little over 11 miles from Yemen, and the Houthis were shooting rockets on a regular basis. And so we had all these big bunkers, all over the base in Djibouti, and they covered them with tank netting, and there were these big HESCOs all around them. So if you're not careful, you can step in them. And one day I did. I ended up in a bunker, and I hyperextended my shoulder and tore my pec and my labrum and my rotator cuff off of my shoulder. Ugh. And my pec rolled up like a fruit roll up into my chest here. And so I waited a week to get medevaced out, but eventually, and that's a whole nother story, and I can tell you that one day too if we got time. But so I waited a week on this airfield for C-17 to come pick me up. And C-17 picks me up, and 2 pilots and a nurse come out, and they start checking me and running IVs and everything and getting me ready for transport. And I got to talking to, and I'm in the middle of nowhere, middle of nowhere.
Right.
And I got to talking to the pilot, and I said, God, your accent sounds familiar. And he said, I live in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
He said, I said, what neighborhood do you live in Mount Pleasant? He said, Darrell Creek. I said, I'm your senator. It's such a small world. We were in the middle of nowhere in the desert outside of Djibouti. And here I am getting picked up by a Mount Pleasant guy.
Wow.
Just an amazing, small world, but an amazing world.
Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
So I guess the question that comes to my mind, you're dealing with a family man, businessman, serving in the state senate and in military. You're juggling a lot right then there. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm sort of a glutton for punishment. I just I can't say no, but I need to say no. Like I recognize priorities, and I recognize.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
No, but it's a good point. Like, I mean, there are times where I do need to say no. I have trouble with that, but I need to recognize priorities. My church, my faith has to come first. My family has to come second. Everything else has to come third and beyond that. And I have to continue. Like that's my North Star. And I have to make sure that that's what I'm doing. Otherwise, everything else is for nothing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's difficult, but I try to balance it the best I can.
Yeah. You were injured.
Yep.
And you were getting ready to get loaded up. So pick us up from there, kind of what it looked like from there.
Okay. So I was picked up by a Mount Pleasant guy, which in the middle of Djibouti, which is sort of funny to me. Small world.
Small world.
Yep. And I was medevaced out to, eventually I got to Landstuhl, Germany, which is where most of the armed services in the Middle East and in Africa are treated. Great hospital, great care there. And spent, I don't know, I guess it was about a month in Germany, and then eventually came back to the States. I was put in a soldier recovery unit at Fort Stewart down in Georgia, and I spent 3 or 4 months at Fort Stewart and was eventually released from active duty and went back to this life. I still serve in the National Guard today, but I serve here locally. I haven't been deployed since then in 2023. But I've been serving in the Senate and serving in the Guard ever since then.
Well, thank you for your service and what you've done for our country.
Thank you for yours.
It's important, but thank you for that. Yeah. Quick question: what do you like? What's the pluses and minuses between serving in the House, serving in the Senate? Sure. What do you like? What's the differences? Your experience there. What's your thoughts?
So I think the best way to tell you about the House is it's a little bit like a train. You get on the train or you get run over by the train. Very caucus-driven, leadership-driven, caucus-driven. The Senate, every man is a one-man army in the Senate, and you can create a lot of chaos where you can be very helpful for your constituents and your people. So the Senate, in my opinion, is better. The House members will take exception to that.
Yeah.
The Senate is better. If you're sort of a guy that's an independent thinker, the Senate is absolutely better. Mm-hmm. There are times where being in the House will drive you crazy if you're an independent thinker. And I don't mean independent as in partisan one way or just like, you don't always like to go with what somebody at the top says. Then the Senate is it's a better system to me. The filibuster is still active, and some people hate that, but even in the majority, you'll find times where the filibuster is needed, mm-hmm. and I don't use objections, but other people do. But you'll find times where objections would be needed, where you find that the minority position, not minority from a Democrat or a Republican perspective, but a minority considering the debate, where the minority position can be heard, where you can walk up to the well and you can make sure the minority position is heard, even if you are the only one in the minority position, right? And that's incredibly powerful, and I think it does a lot of justice for your folks here at home if you're acting in their best interest. So I like the Senate better.
Yeah, look, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
So you told us early on you fighting big government. You want to so people can operate businesses.
Yeah.
Did you has that kind of been a lot of your work in the Senate, or like where? I know you touch everything and you have to vote on everything, but where do you like to focus in? What's some of your best work that you've done in the Senate, or where you're working today, and those kind of things?
Sure. Regulatory reform is if you asked anybody objectively, sort of, what's Goldfinch's thing in the Senate, they would tell you regulatory reform. I've rewritten a lot of the agency's regulations, stripped them out, started over again last year or the year before. The years are running together now. I stripped out all of DHEC's regulations and rewrote them all from soup to nuts. It's a monumental task, honestly, and I can get into why it's a monumental task, but it is a pain. DHEC, for instance, is still using regulations that do not comport with the law that has been changed in the last 20 years. So they're using 30-year-old regulations to try to fit into a 20-year or a 15-year statutory scheme. And it just doesn't make sense. But what they'll tell you is that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
In my law firm, and I'm getting a little sideways here from your question, but in my law firm, I do administrative law, which means I sue agencies. I mean, that's 99% of what my law practice is I sue agencies. I fight bureaucracy. And in my law firm, I always ask bureaucrats the same question. You put them on the stand or you depose them, I always ask them the same question every single time. And the question goes something like this: why is it that you did what you did to deny the permit, to ruin this person's life or this person's business? Why did you do it? What gave you the authority to do that? And the answer almost every single time, Autry, is that's the way we've always done it.
It's not a good answer.
It's not the right answer. See, the right answer is either statute gave me the authority, regulation gave me the authority, or policy gave me the authority. And if you answer with policy, I'm going to beat you up on that too, because that's almost the wrong answer. Almost always the wrong answer, always. But those are the only three acceptable answers. And the answer almost is always, that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, I appreciate you answering that.
Yeah.
I think last year you tackled a pretty big one. I think you carried the weight. Tell us about when our state treasurer, that $1.8 billion, I think the people of South Carolina said that we had and didn't have. And tell us all about that.
So you don't really get to pick your committee assignments. And sometimes you do, but I did not in this case. I ended up on a committee that is very, very busy committee. It's called the Constitutional Subcommittee of the Finance Committee. Constitutional Subcommittee of the Finance Committee, and ultimately constitutional officers and their budget requests sit under us. And so if one has done wrongdoing for some reason, we are the committee, the subcommittee that investigates that wrongdoing. In 2000, and I don't know how much backstory you need on this, but I'll give you a little bit and you just tell me if it's too much. In 2014 or so, we started converting our old accounting system to the new accounting system. And, once they had completed that conversion, there was about $5.8 billion that was left over that the accountants at the treasurer's office didn't know where it belonged.
Tell me that figure one more time.
5.8 billion with a B.
Ooh.
Okay, they couldn't figure it out.
Okay.
They had no idea in the conversion where that money came from or why it was there. And so in 2006, that was about 2016 or so, and from 2016 to 2018, they worked on that $5.8 billion number. They eventually whittled it down to $1.8 billion, okay? And in 2018, they said, that's it. We can't do any more. This $1.8 billion is a mystery. We don't know why it's there. So the treasurer never came to us from 2014 to 18, and from 2018 to 2023, Never came to us, although we have evidence that he knew about it. Never came to us, never told us meaning the General Assembly or the public, that there was a problem with the accounting system. When 2023, there was a whistleblower that had moved offices from the Treasurer's office to the Comptroller General's office, and she threatened the Comptroller General that she was going to reveal this if somebody didn't tell. The Comptroller General came to our subcommittee, the Constitutional Law Subcommittee, and told us that there was $1 billion+ that was missing or there, but we don't know why it's there. He was unclear as to what it was.
Do you remember hearing that for the first time that day? What was your thinking?
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was totally shocked. We aren't talking about $1 million, but even though that would be shocking too, we're talking about $1 billion+. And why weren't we told about it way back when? And ultimately, our investigation led us to the Treasurer's office. The Treasurer was responsible for the conversion. And the Treasurer knew, going all the way back to 2014, that there was a problem, and he intentionally hid it from us. In fact, there was an account, there's a numbered account where all those dollars went. And the account is literally labeled, there's a code, okay? If you click on the code beside the account, it says, hide from all other agencies.
Holy moly.
Yeah. Yeah, him and his staff, his chief of staff, hid it from everybody.
So they really believed the money was real? Is that the question to say?
So he came to our subcommittee eventually when we compelled him to come. He came to our subcommittee and he testified, sort of belligerently testified. He actually threw a pencil at me from the podium. He threw a pencil at me when I asked him a question. But he testified that the money was real. Under oath, he testified the money was real and that he had earned, I think it was $250 million in interest on that money, and that the General Assembly had spent it. That's what he said.
Oh boy.
None of that was true. Mm-hmm. Number one, after we did a $25 million forensic accounting for his mistake, we found out the money had never been true. True as in never been existed. The money had never existed. There was never any interest made on it because the money never existed. And obviously the General Assembly hadn't spent the interest because the money never existed. He just fabricated it all. He made it all up. And so, the subcommittee chairman, the finance chairman, and the president of the Senate all thought it was appropriate, considering everything that had happened, that we pursue impeachment against him. Mm-hmm. And I was the unlucky short straw drawer. I was the only lawyer, I think I was the only lawyer with prosecution experience on the subcommittee at the time. And I'd been real involved in the subcommittees. And I was asked by the chairman of finance, Senator Peeler, and President Alexander, and the chairman of the subcommittee, Senator Grooms, if I would prosecute the case in front of the Senate. It's the first time we've had an impeachment since, I think, 1856. And I agreed to do it, but it was an undertaking. I mean, it was the first time we've had an impeachment in a very, very long time, and there's just not a lot of appetite in the General Assembly to impeach a Republican constitutional officer, quite frankly.
So how did it turn out, Senator?
Well, the Senate impeached him 38-6. I think it's 38-6 is what we ended up with. The Senate impeached him. We had months and months and months of testimony and depositions, and it all culminated in an impeachment trial on the Senate floor. The Senate sat as jurors, senators sat as jurors, and I presented the case. His lawyers presented a case. We did rebuttals and testimony and all that good stuff, and the Senate impeached him 38-6, and it then goes over to the House for an impeachment proceeding, and the House declined to take it up. And the only explanation I can give for that is it's just too toxic. It's a Republican constitutional officer, and nobody wants to touch impeaching a Republican constitutional officer when we're all a bunch of Republicans. And I understand it, but I'm not big for political gamesmanship. And so I did my job, and if the House doesn't want to do it, then that's what it is.
So these are my words, not yours, but they were just scared of the political blowback from it. It's the reason why they didn't take it up.
He's a popular guy. He's a popular guy, and he has a lot of acolytes out there. He speaks well on the campaign trail. He does a lot of blaming. He likes to blame the General Assembly for all the problems of the state. And so when you take that position, everybody else is corrupt. Don't look at me, everybody else is corrupt. It's a very popular, populist thing to say, and I think you gain traction like that. And so there are folks out there that would be reluctant to take that on. That's a machine, he's got a machine around him. He's very popular on social media, and so I think there's reluctance to take a machine on, a popular Republican constitutional officer. And I get it. I was asked to do a job. I did the job. He was impeached 38-6. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just the Constitutional Committee. 38-6 in the Senate. So, obviously the Senate thought there was something behind it.
Well, from my perspective, I think there's some times where people do things wrong. They go into something and say, I'm going to criminally do something wrong.
Sure.
It didn't feel like that to me.
No.
But it felt like he didn't know how to do the job. I don't know how else to say it. And there's a lot of things Autry can't do.
Yeah.
But you don't need to be doing the job if you can't do it.
Yeah, I think the constitutional provision that gives the House and the Senate the ability to impeach somebody basically says that you can impeach somebody. So there's two different provisions, and this is really getting in the weeds, but there's two different provisions. There's a criminal provision, which means after you're impeached, you can literally go to jail. Mm-hmm. And then there's a non-criminal provision, which means basically you get fired from your job. Mm-hmm. The non-criminal provision doesn't require nearly as much of a showing, right? Because due process isn't a concern if you're not going to jail, right? You're just losing your job. So the non-criminal provision that we operated under, basically what you said is correct. If you're incompetent and you can't do your job, like you're not either physically able to do your job or mentally able to do your job, you can be impeached. Yeah. Think about it this way. What if he had, God forbid, I wish no harm upon him, what if he had had a stroke and physically was unable to do his job, mentally was unable to do his job, but he was just elected last year? Should we have a guy that's running our $60+ billion, you add everything up together with the investments and all, it's $60+ billion that he's responsible for. Yeah. Should we have a guy that physically and mentally cannot perform the function sitting in that seat for the next 3 years, or should we have some mechanism to remove him from office? I think we should have some mechanism to be able to remove him from office. Yeah.
Thank you for sticking that. We got to travel quick.
Sure.
So you've got a bill this year that I'm really interested in, and it's a tongue twister: coercive control.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Explain the bill and tell us about it and why we need it.
Coercive control is what I like to think of as like the precursor to domestic violence, and certainly the precursor to domestic violence by death. So South Carolina is one of the worst in the nation for domestic violence and death as a result of domestic violence. In fact, we might be the worst. We're right up there at the top. Autry, it's horrible. And so coercive control is what happens just before that starts happening. So there's a movie that just came out about it recently. I think Sydney Sweeney was in it. I can't remember the name of the movie. But the guy in the movie is exhibiting coercive control throughout the entire movie. He locks her in a closet, basically, with no food or water, and he tells her that she has to do horrible things to herself in order to get out. Mm-hmm. She has to cut herself, or she has to whatever, pull out a tooth. Terrible things, but not things that he would likely be charged for domestic. He never laid a hand on her. Mm-hmm. And so these are things where you're denying a spouse or a partner, a domestic partner, the ability to use a phone. You're denying them the right to see their family. You're exerting control over them where they can't, they don't have free will to move about. So locking somebody in a closet, for instance, right? These are things that are about to lead to something horrible. Mm-hmm. They are horrible in and of themselves. And Micah Miller is a great example of this. I have not, so just to be fair, I haven't seen the case file. I just know what I've heard in the community and what she experienced. And so a lot of people are calling it Micah's Law, and I'm fine with that if you want to call it Micah's Law. But basically, if you are found guilty of doing any of those things, that's the precursor to domestic violence, I think we ought to take action. I think this whole idea of being reactionary towards domestic violence is a mistake. Mm-hmm. We ought to be proactive towards domestic violence. Mm-hmm. We ought to stop it in its tracks before it becomes horrible injury and death.
I agree.
And that's what coercive control does.
Thank you for your work on that.
Sure.
I totally support you. Moving on, really quick, where do you think, judicial reform in our state? We did some. What's your thoughts on where the judicial system is today, and do you like it? Do we need to move forward? What do we need to do? There's a lot of appetite out there, Senator.
There is, and so let me start by saying this. I would never be in favor of judges being elected by popular vote. If you've ever seen a lawyer billboard, I think it's highly distasteful. I do not like lawyers advertising. I just think it's disgusting. Some of these lawyer advertisements are disgusting. If you've ever seen a judicial billboard, it's even worse, right? The idea that a drug dealer on the corner or the white-collar criminal, living in the mansion down the street, could have been the biggest donor to the judge that's sitting on the bench that will be hearing that case 2 or 3 years from now is a really bad feeling to me. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever been to Florida and seen all the judicial billboards, it's just not something that I could support. So what is it? Like, where do we go? And this is the same struggle that our founders were going through. They don't want popular vote because of the intrinsic problems that you have with popular vote. Do we do the federal system? They didn't 200 years ago when they were 1895 when they were writing our last Constitution. They didn't have a lot of trust in governors either, right? There was a lot of distrust between the General Assembly and the governor. And so I always, when I get asked this question on the campaign trail, I always tell people, have you picked out who you're voting for governor yet? So let me ask you, have you picked out, I'm not going to ask you who it is. Have you picked out who you're voting for governor yet?
I think I got a good idea.
All right. Do you have a person in mind that you would absolutely never vote for governor?
Yeah, probably.
Probably so. Most people do. What if that person that you would absolutely never vote for governor became governor? Would you be comfortable with that person picking the judges?
Probably not.
Right. So therein lies the problem. So our founders were thinking the same thing. No popular election. We don't like the idea of a governor that we don't like picking the judges. What's in between? They came up with this idea that JMSC and the General Assembly. Now, the problem with that is the perception. The perception of our institution being corrupt, let's just call it corrupt, is a real, the perception is real, and the perception should not be tolerated, and we ought to do something about it, because perception matters. You have to have trust in your institutions. Mm-hmm. And so I sponsored a bill this year which allowed for the governor to appoint every member of the JMSC, and then the JMSC then screens the judges, which the General Assembly then votes on. I think that's a middle ground. Mm-hmm. If we had to go all the way to the governor picking the judges, and then the federal system, for instance, federal system, the president picks all the judges, and then the Senate confirms the judges. If we had to go all the way to that system, I could live with it. But we're getting right back to where you were. Would I really want my least desirable gubernatorial picking judges?
Yeah. In your what you just laid out, if the governor picks the JMSC,
yeah, would
legislators serve on there, or they would be outside of?
Well, it's totally up to the governor.
Okay.
In my opinion, the best way to avoid the perception of impropriety is to keep legislators off the JMSC.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you make a good point. Let me say that. The only thing is, I think sometimes, the political's still in there because we're electing senators and House of Representatives, and they're picking them. So it's just it's through the cloak of one step back, So, but you do lay out a very good, interesting format it's very interesting. Yeah. But you do think we need to continue to work on it?
Oh, I think we need reform, but getting everybody on the same page is a challenge. And everything's a challenge in politics that's worthwhile, right? But we need to do it because, again, people need to have trust in their institutions. I think this idea that the General Assembly picking judges that, in some cases show back up in front of those judges, I think that is a perception of impropriety that we have to address. Yeah. Even if there is no impropriety, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The perception of impropriety is important, and we need to address that because we serve the people.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, we're traveling fast, about 5 minutes. I want to hit 2 more subjects real quick. We had, and I don't know if you can speak this or not, and if you can, I know you won't, but the Boyd Spivey case in Horry County, a lot of people in Horry County have had their eyes on that or whatever. Can you speak to what happened there, what the AG's office did, and kind of where we're at today? Anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, so let me be careful how I say this if I can, because if I'm elected Attorney General, I may have something to do with this case.
I understand. And if you need to back out, we can move on.
Well, let me just tell you how I would do it. If I was approached with something similar as Attorney General, I would want a judge to make the decision whether or not this was what it was.
Okay, I got you.
Right. I mean, it would make me feel more comfortable for a judge to make the call on whether or not this was self-defense.
Yeah.
And so I don't have any, like, I haven't seen the case file. Okay. SLED's got the case file. The Attorney General's got the case file, and they're making. I think there's actually some movement on it now. I saw the solicitor last week was moving on the case, but just so that I'm careful, because I end up being Attorney General one day and I have to do something with this. I don't want to get too far out of my skis, but I like the idea of judges making that call rather than a bureaucracy making that call.
I got you. Okay, you serve as a senator in Charleston, Georgetown, and some of Horry. Okay.
Used to be Charleston.
Used to be Charleston. It's just
got redistricted. Now it's Georgetown and Horry.
Georgetown. Okay.
Yeah.
So you in Georgetown got a sheriff, runs the sheriff's department. In Horry, we got a Horry County Police Department and a sheriff's department. Yeah. This case, I think, has brought up the light of the two law enforcement system we have in Horry County. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts? Do you like that system, or do you want it all under a sheriff?
The current sheriff, to my knowledge, is not a supporter of it.
And then listen, I believe we got good law enforcement men on both departments or whatever, sure. But you're kind of a small government guy. Got to be we can save some money too.
Yeah, so. Well, if you can save money, I'm always in favor of saving money. Yeah. But I'd like to know what the sheriff thinks about that.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, so you're running for Attorney General. Yeah. If elected Attorney General, tell us your thoughts, what you want to do for the state, and just your thoughts on the office and running for it.
So the Attorney General's office, I think the easiest way to do this is what the Attorney General's office does. It has three departments. One would be the criminal department that prosecutes cases, as you can imagine, major crimes, conflicts of interest. Then you got the civil and the administrative side. That's what I do now. The civil and the administrative side fights the big government, the big federal overreach. God forbid we wind up with a Gavin Newsom or a Kamala Harris in 2028. You got to have an Attorney General that knows what he or she's doing, that can go to the Supreme Court and can fight that federal oppressive regime on behalf of the conservative folks of South Carolina. Okay. And then you've got what we call the opinions in the legislative division. And that's where the Attorney General interacts with the legislature and tells the legislature, look, you should consider an and rather than an or here, or this law is going to be indefensible in court, or this law is going to be very defensible in court. So they interact with each other on a regular basis, daily basis. In fact, the Attorney General has to hire a lobbyist right now to stand out in the lobby because he's never been in the legislature. He's never served in any of the caucuses. He has to hire a lobbyist, and the lobbyist stands out in the lobby and waves at senators and say, hey, please come over here and let me talk to you about this bill. And a lot of times it's not very effective. So, I'm blessed enough to have served in the House Republican caucus and the Senate Republican caucus. If I see a problem with a bill, I just go sit down at the caucus with them. I still have my caucus credentials. Mm-hmm. I go sit down at the caucus at lunch with the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate and say, hey, Mr. President, let me talk to you about this bill. Very effective way of doing things. Mm-hmm. And then obviously on the criminal justice side, I've prosecuted hundreds, if not thousands, of cases on the criminal justice side in the military as a JAG officer. And the way that I'm successful, Autry, is I surround myself with people that are better looking and smarter than I am. And I'm going to have great people on that team as well. So I feel like I can start this job on day one, not walking or crawling, but running. Mm-hmm. I've done all of these things, and I feel like I've done them well, and I'd like to continue doing those as Attorney General.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So do you think that everything in your life has brought you to this point?
Certainly. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm an anarchist. I'm not, okay? And I don't want any of this conversation to lead to that conclusion. I'm not an anarchist, but I really dislike the agency state. I mean, that is the deep state. Those people, those bureaucrats are going to be there before I get there, while I'm there, and they're going to be there long after I'm gone. And those are the guys and gals sitting in a cubicle somewhere in Washington, D.C. or in Columbia that are ruining people's lives. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that we minimize their effect on the people of South Carolina. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that we're fighting the good fight, fighting the deep state, the agency state, and that we're doing everything we can for the men and women of America and South Carolina to live their best lives, to live the American dream, to be entrepreneurs, and to grow wealth.
Yeah, it's a core principle of being a Republican, small government, correct?
Right.
Government, good. Well, Senator, thank you for joining us today. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Folks, as we finish up today, as an American, one of your greatest rights is to be able to vote. We are in an election season. Do your homework and go vote. Go vote. It's your privilege. Join us next time.